I know there's many docs that believe that the level of linoleic acid is as important as the refined carbohydrates you have with regards to prediabetes, insulin resistance, and diabetes itself. Are you saying that the electron transport chain is just being affected if there's too many PUFAs, especially linoleic acid in the diet?
Yes. So polyunsaturated fatty acids, they interfere with two, like I would say two areas of the electron transport chain that are important for proper carbohydrate metabolism. And that would be cytochrome C oxidase and PDH. And both of those are required to fully oxidize carbohydrates. When those, so with oxidative phosphorylation, that's the full oxidation of carbohydrates. You want electrons to flow very smoothly and quickly through the electron transport chain. So you need all these enzymes to work along the way. It's an extremely complicated process. So saturated fats kind of get out of the way, and oxidative phosphorylation is not really impacted, whereas polyunsaturated fats, they negatively impact PDH and cytochrome C oxidase. So these are various steps along, and that can lead to downregulation of oxidative phosphorylation, which then upregulates glycolysis. So with carbohydrates, you can either do glycolysis, which is outside the mitochondria, and this is associated with cancer metabolism, the Warburg effect, or oxidative phosphorylation, which is the full usage of carbohydrates, the proper carbohydrate oxidation. And between those two options, you generate significantly more ATP energy for the cells through oxidative phosphorylation, and it leads to the production of beneficial carbon dioxide, CO2, that you don't get from glycolysis. So PUFAs negatively interfere with that. And I think that that is one of the main reasons why there's all of these metabolic problems that we see when you see a high linoleic acid. Because I always like to think of like, okay, what's the mechanism? What's the reason why? Well, if you're interfering with proper energy production, then that means that the whole system, the whole body will have less ATP. And so then something's got to give, right? You don't have as much energy, so some functions are going to be downregulated. So that's going to, of course, lead to compromised function and then, all of these various diabetes and other chronic diseases that we're seeing.
Mm, sure. Powerful. So, is the best way we measure that now with clients and patients here? Because there's some a lot of research on olive oil. Olive oil is full of linoleic acid, and yet has been doubted as this incredible product. And there's so many research papers on the amount of olive oil I have per week, and some, very, very well-known docs that are influencers out there saying how important olive oil is. Are you saying, just from your knowledge, the most important is to measure the levels of linoleic acid?
Do you mean where?
Like if you do a dried blood spot
Oh,
analysis, then you get a good idea if someone's getting too
um,
many molecules of linoleic acid.
so it's complicated, and I think that there's a lot of research that needs to be better developed. The best way would be to be a adipose tissue sample, which is very hard. You can't just go and say, "Hey, I'm going to take some fat off of you," and then go assess it. But the biggest issue with linoleic acid is it's often converted into its next metabolite quickly in the body, arachidonic acid. And so even if someone is consuming higher levels of linoleic acid, it could get converted, right, quickly.
Okay.
And so I wouldn't say that that's necessarily the best marker. I would say that someone's dietary intake of saturated to unsaturated will definitely play a role there, but measuring more metabolic markers like fasting insulin, fasting glucose, body temperature, and pulse measurements, and that will give you a better idea of your systemic metabolism. And high PUFAs will definitely downregulate that. And so you'll definitely see lower body temperatures, lower pulse metrics, or significantly higher pulse metrics, higher fasting insulin, higher fasting glucose, and various things like that. I think that there's a lot more technology that needs to be developed when it comes to assessing someone's fatty acid state. But the gold standard would be taking an adipose tissue sample of you. And there's various research studies documenting they do this in the lab and they measure the percentage of PUFA, percentage of MUFA, and percentage of saturated fat in your body. You're never going to be fully saturated. That's not the point. You're always going to have a mixture of MUFA, PUFA, and saturated, but it is very well documented that we are significantly less saturated than our great grandparents. So for I always like to bring up for something to go up, so the PUFA concentration in our fat stores, something else has to go down, and that has been the saturated. So we are more unsaturated. Our MUFA stores and our PUFA stores have gone up, and our saturated fat stores have gone down. Um, there's actually quite a bit of conflicting information on olive oil, and I think that the main benefits of olive oil are from the polyphenol content. Polyphenols are very beneficial, anti-cancer, anti-inflammation. That's well documented. However, there's a lot of conflicting information on high oleic acid, which is the main MUFA in olive oil, uh, and how that can lead to an upregulation of these desaturase enzymes, which can increase conversion of saturated fats to unsaturated fats in your body. So I personally don't think that the answer is bump up MUFA. I think that the Mediterranean diet is a little bit of a hoax because they actually don't eat super high MUFA in many regions. And I think that a much more ancestral approach is to make sure that your saturated to unsaturated ratio is a little bit higher than 1, which is what our great grandparents did. They weren't guzzling down olive oil. They had ghee, dairy, beef fat, eggs. And at the end of the day, when you look at that dietary fat composition, it's higher in saturated fats than MUFA and PUFA. So I think that there's been some interesting, people become obsessed with these things, right? So they're obsessed with the omega-3 to 6 ratio. They're obsessed with guzzling down olive oil. But is that really the solution to fixing our metabolic problems? Or should we be paying attention to some different areas? So I wish that there was an easier day-to-day assessment of your body fat stores, but unfortunately right now that would require pulling out some fat tissue from you and assessing that because of these various desaturase enzymes that are always converting your dietary fats into its downstream metabolites. So linoleic acid isn't always just going to be sitting in your body. If you have high levels of desaturase enzymes, it's going to be metabolize and oxidize down to its next byproduct. However, in your fat stores, that's where you could be storing more MUFA and PUFA, and that would be a really good picture to assess. Like I think if someone were just starting their metabolism and like health journey, if they could somehow get an assessment of their body fat stores, which I think the only way right now would be like that omega quant test, which it's still blood. It's still blood. And it's not a direct correlation with your body fat stores, but it's like the best we have, I guess,
Yeah.
right now. So I would really love if someone was able to find something where you can better assess your body fat stores. But it would be really cool if someone started their journey, got an assessment of their body fat, MUFA, PUFA saturated percentage, and then a year later got the same test done and see what the shift was, because that would be pretty telling because your body fat stores are directly changed by your diet and the state of your metabolism.